vessel I made. Cherry with a walnut ring in the middle and a walnut top. I'm quite pleased with this. I think it's a pretty little piece and my wife likes it, so that's always a big help. So stick with me and let's go take a look at how this was made. I have 4 pieces of wood to work with. 2 pieces of walnut. One is 5/16 of an inch thick. The other one just over an inch. 2 pieces of cherry that are about 1 3/4 inches thick. Now I have drawn a circle on each one to its maximum, and I'm going to just take it over to my bandsaw and knock the corners off. I still have a 3/4 inch blade on there, which is too wide to go around here, and I'm still too lazy to change it. I've also drilled 3/8 inch holes in each of the cherry pieces to accommodate my woodworm screw. So I'm going to go and cut these corners off of these, then go over to the lathe, and I hope you'll join me there to carry on with this project. Alright, the first thing I did was mark the center. Then I took a compass set to 2 inches to get a 4-inch diameter. Now that's the largest I can turn because this piece that I want to put between the 2 pieces of cherry is at the most 4 inches. So I'm going to turn this slightly less than 4 inches. And then I'm going to put a tenon on here so I can reverse chuck it and then turn the inside. So let me first round this over. I'll be turning this at 2000 RPM. This little go, no-go block helps a lot. It tells me when I've got to the size I want to be for compression and also how large it'll go in expansion. I should be able to do the sanding on this now, and then I will reverse chuck it to do the interior. I'll be using my 3/8 inch bowl gouge and turning at 2000 RPM. And I'll use my depth gauge to check as usual. Make sure I don't get too thin on the bottom. A little further to go. Now I just want to trim off the top here a little bit. There's some chipping around the edge. That should be good enough. I'm going to use my sanding board just to make sure I get this real flat. It's not quite perfect. And then I'll sand the inside, and I'll be back when this is ready. In case you're wondering what I mean by a sanding board, it's just a piece of 2x4 that I jointed to make sure it's very flat, and I've used double-sided tape to put 80 grit sandpaper along it on one side and 100 grit on the other side. Now when I put it on here with this spinning at 500 RPM, it will sand this flat. And I have my dust collection duct right here, the port for it, and I'm just going to sand this until it's flat. I've made pencil marks around here so I'll be able to tell for sure when it's finished. And that's all it takes, just a few seconds, and I've got a nice flat surface there ready to accept the piece of walnut that I'm going to glue on here. So now I'll sand the inside and then I'll be back. I've got it sanded now up to 400 grit. That's plenty good enough. Now I want to take this off. I'm going to take it and put it on top of this, glue it down on this block. I'm going to put it in a press or put some weight on here, and after the glue is dried, I'll be back for the next step. It's glued up in the press now, and this may seem an obvious thing, but in case someone's new to woodworking and may not have thought of it, the reason I have it in the press with the bowl facing down is to make sure that the glue, which is still wet, does not gravitate into the bowl itself. Now it's late in the day and I'm going to let this sit overnight. By the time I come in the morning, everything should be dry and I won't have to worry about that glue splashing around on the inside of the bowl. The glue has had plenty of time to dry now. I'm going to true up the outside using my 3/8 inch bowl gouge at 2000 RPM. Then I'm going to use a parting tool just to take out a disc from the inside. I'll turn it 1000 RPM to do that. I'm sure I'll use that disc somewhere at some point. Now I'm going to thin this down. I don't want this disc quite that thick on here, so I'm going to take a lot of that off. Now I'm going to use my sanding board to flatten this out again, and then I'll be right back. Now with this face nice and flat, I am going to turn this back to match the inside of the bowl. I find when I get very close, it's a lot easier to just shear scrape with the wing of my gouge than to take a chance I'm going a little too far. right in close enough now that I think I can just clean it up with sandpaper. I've had people ask me before why I bother sanding up to 400 grit on the inside where probably no one's going to see it. Well, I don't know, that's just the way I am, and I'm not doing this for a living. I'm retired, this is my hobby, and it just bothers me not to do the very best I can. I'm not telling anybody else to do that, it's just my little mental tweak there. So now I'm going to mount this piece of cherry back onto that woodworm screw, and I'm going to turn it, put a tenon on it, reverse chuck it, and then turn the outside to match this and the inside to match that. And I'll come back when I've got that part done. You've already seen that done. I'll be back. Alright, I've got it turned and sanded inside what will be the lid, and I have waxed the living heck out of it, as well as this one, just to make sure that when I glue these together, any glue that floats around in there hopefully will not stick too badly. Now what I want to do is bring up the tailstock with an adapter for this chuck to put these together, glue them together, and I'll let them sit there for a couple of hours. Alright, I'm going to put a little tight bond around the edge. Trying to keep it from going inside too much. And I'm going to bring up the tailstock to push the bottom up on the lid. I will turn the lid as they're coming together to spread the glue evenly. And then I'm going to let them sit tight together for a good couple of hours. All right. Okay, that should have the glue spread well enough. I'm hoping that wax inside will work well at keeping it from letting the glue stick to everything. Alright, time to take this out of this chuck. I'll just back this off a little bit here. And then take it off of that adapter. Now I'm ready to put this back on and try turning the top of this. Now back to the turning. Now I'm going to do a little shear scraping on this area, and then I will finish off the top. Now I'm going to sand this, and I'll be back to carry on. I'm going to use a 1-inch Forstner bit to open up the top. I'm turning at 250 RPM. This was my way to find out just how thick it really is. I want to take some of this off, so I'm going to reshape this a little bit. I'll be turning at 2000 RPM again. Getting a little bit of tear out there. I'm going to put this in reverse, try it on the other side, see if it works any better. That is a bit of an improvement. Must be just the way the grain is running. I'm going to try to clean up inside there a little bit. This Easy Wood Hollower is the only hollowing tool I have that might even come close to doing the job. All it has to do is just barely sneak around that corner. So I think it'll work. Only one way to find out. Oh yeah, that worked great. Alright, I just want to sand this again, and then I'm going to call that done for this part. When I started this project, I had something else in mind, and this piece would have been just fine. Now it is way overkill. I'd be wasting a lot of wood. So I've got this little scrap that I found, and I'm going to turn that round and have it a little tenon that'll fit inside there. So I'll do that next. I've pre-marked a 1-inch circle on here to get a tenon to fit inside this opening. I want it to be 1/4 inch deep to match this. And I'm going to start this with a parting tool, and I'm just going to sneak up on it until it fits in here properly. Alright, that's got a nice snug fit. Now I just need to make that a little deeper. Now I want to glue this in here and use this to turn that and shape it. And I forgot something, which was going to come as no surprise to anyone. Before I took this piece out of the chuck it was in and reversed it into here, I should have drilled a hole through from the other side. That way I would have prevented any chip out that might happen on the inside now. I'm going to start shaping this now, turning at 2000 RPM. I'm going to try my 1/4 inch bowl gouge in here, see if I can get a more delicate cut. Okay, I think the best way to clean that up now is going to be with sandpaper, but I don't want this quite as high as it is. Take a little off of there. Alright, I think I'll drill my hole through there now. Using this drill gauge, I can see that my smallest finger will not fit a 1/2 inch hole. I realize some children or ladies may be able to do that, but I cannot. So I'm going to drill this to a 1/2 inch, at least to start, and we'll see where it goes from there. I may want to enlarge it. Alright, I'm just going to sand this and then I'll be back. I have it sanded to 400 grit. Now I'm going to use Ultra Shine just to give it that little bit more. I'm going to put this on at 250 RPM and then I will buff it at 2000. Looking good. To buff inside the opening, I've just wrapped some shop towel around a pencil. And that does a beautiful job too. Now my next step is to use a friction finish called Shellawax. I've turned this way down to 100 RPM. Just going to apply a little of this. Now I'm going to turn the lathe up as fast as it will go, which is 3000 RPM. Well, it's not as fast as it'll go, but it's pretty close. This being a friction polish, I need the high speed for the heat. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to buff it a little more with this. I'll get a fresh towel to do that. And then I'm going to put a coat or two, maybe even more, of Minwax Wipe-On Poly on here. Now I'm going to put some Wipe-On Poly, Minwax Wipe-On Poly in a clear gloss. This is looking pretty good. Quite like it. But I'm thinking that the Wipe-On Poly might just give a little protection. Turn this down to 100 RPM just to apply it. So it goes on nice and smooth. Well, I lost track, to be honest, but this has either 6 or 7 coats of Minwax Wipe-On Gloss Poly on it, and I'm really happy with it. It looks just gorgeous. Now, you may have noticed there's one thing I didn't do that I normally do before I put a finish of this caliber on. I did not turn the bottom, and there's a reason for that. I wanted to get this looking as good as I can and see if I can turn the bottom without ruining this. If I used a jam chuck or tried a small donut chuck, all of those can mar this finish. So I'm going to try it with my vacuum chuck. See if I can put this on there, turn this away without damaging this at all. It's the one thing I can think of to try. If you have some other ideas, I'd really appreciate hearing about it. I'm always looking for good suggestions, so feel free to let me know. Right now I'm going to get the vacuum chuck hooked up and use this. Now my vacuum chuck, I've never had one before, never used one before, so I don't know if they're all like this, but mine is a lot louder than I thought it was going to be, and it also puts out a lot of smoke. I actually had my shop closed up one day. Using it, it set off the smoke alarm. So now I set it outside, it's winter, and I can't close the door all the way, so try not to do this for too long. Let's take this over to the lathe and see if I can get the vacuum chuck to work. This is the vacuum chuck I made using staved construction in this section. Hauled it out fairly well. The larger chamber in there, for some reason, I don't understand this whole vacuum process, is supposed to hold it better. Now I've brought my tailstock up with the live center just to support this while I get going. Luckily I had left a little indent right on the center so I know where to put the live center. Alright, now I'm going to fire up the vacuum pump and see what we can do here. Alright, I hope the sound of the vacuum pump's not going to be a bother. This is not holding as well as I would like because I have a very long hose to get it outside. So it's dropped it down from what was 27 down to about 23. And it's not holding as well as I would like, so I'm going to leave this up. I've changed it to this cone-shaped live center, and I'm going to get in there as close as I can and then take it off and remove the rest by just carving it away. I'll get as close as I can with this. If I can't get all the way in, I'll bring in my spindle gouge, which has a longer profile, and use that. And I'm going to be turning at 1000 RPM. Now, as long as this little knob is less than 15/16 of an inch, I'll be fine because I will be drilling a recess at that size for my logo coin. Now I'm just going to sand this and then I'll be back. I'll be turning at 250 RPM to drill this, just using my hand just in case, although this should work just fine. Alright, just got to put my logo coin in there and I'll be done. And there it is. And I'm quite pleased with it. I think it turned out just about exactly the way I wanted it to. Although, actually at the beginning I had a slightly different idea, which is why I had that large piece of walnut. But this is really nice. I'm very happy with it. And that's all there is to say about that. Now, you may remember that at one point I had to change the craft foam on my vacuum chuck. It's because it was all crushed and it was leaking a little bit, so I put a new piece on. And I used this spray adhesive to do that. When I put the spray adhesive on, I must have had a little bit that came around and got on this surface. So when I put this little vessel on there, that glue stuck to the top of this. Now, just in case you don't already know about that, WD-40 does a great job of taking adhesive off. So I just used a little of that, and it did not ruin the finish like so many other adhesive removers would do. So, a little tip for you if you haven't already heard about it. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this and hope you come back next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day in your shop. Be safe. Take care of yourself now. Bye-bye.